Ça y est. Bonsoir à tous. Bonsoir à tous et bienvenue à notre 9e conférence parenthèse de l'année, dont le thème est intitulé « Carrière à l'international ». Alors, pour commencer, nous sommes la commission parenthèse. Pour ceux et celles qui ne savent pas, la commission parenthèse, c'est une association étudiante de Junia qui aide les étudiants Junia, HEI, ISEN et ISA dans la construction de leurs projets professionnels. Cela leur permet également d'affiner un projet professionnel déjà connu, de découvrir des métiers ou tout simplement aiguiser leur curiosité. Donc ce soir, nous avons avec nous Madame Claire Sancelot qui va nous présenter son parcours, ses multiples expériences et donner les clés à ceux et celles qui désirent réaliser une expérience à l'international.
Mon petit timer, comme ça. Hop. Merci. Merci de m'inviter, Junia. Vous restez là, comme ça, vous mettez les slides. D'accord. C'est pour moi m'asseoir, alors? Wow, OK. J'allais mettre debout. So I think the conference today is in English. People are complaining. This is good for you, so get used to it. So thank you so much for inviting me today. First, I wanted to share with you the fact that I'm not necessarily an example, okay? So this is just to each his own path. This is something very important to remember. So what I'm going to share with you is my path, the past 25 years. I'm 48 years old this year. I'm not quite 48 yet, but I will be 48 this year. So my path started, internationally 30 years ago exactly. Here, let's go. Okay, next one. Yeah, next one. Yeah, thank you. So I'm born here in Lille, and I went to school right here at La Salle. It was before called Saint-Pierre. I did a bachelor in economics at the time. Okay. What you have to understand is Lille in the 90s was not the Lille you know now. Okay, it was very different Lille. The Lille in the 90s was with a very high unemployment rate. I think we were close to 16%. So it's not the same Lille, okay? All the factories were moving where? China, Asia. And the mines, of course, in Hauts-de-France were closing down. So it was a really dark time. Now, obviously, Lille moved to the Tertiaire, and it's really a joyful and lovely town. Vieux-Lille had 2 streets, okay, where we could go out. It was another time. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Next one. So because Lille was so hard and so depressing, and I studied economics in high school, and my parents were very much, we had to be very good at school, right? We had to be very academic. And I didn't want to have it turns out I had a very academic background, but I didn't want to be academic at the beginning. And I went to New York. I was very lucky. I went to New York when I was a teenager. And I told my parents I wanted to go to New York to study. Bear in mind, I didn't speak any English. I spoke English like a French person in the 90s. Okay, so really, really bad. And I'm the oldest of 5 children. So, and at the time, I think for French people in the 90s, we didn't know what it was an Ivy League school. We couldn't understand what it was. Do you understand what I mean? It was another time. So maybe it was beginner's luck or just pure naivete, but I wanted to be in New York, and I told my parents I'm going to try. And so I took a ticket to New York City. I started working. I took the New York Times. Bear in mind, I didn't speak English, or barely. I remember very well. Look, let me go back. I was at the airport in New York City, JFK, and the lady told me something. I couldn't even understand what she said. I just said, yes, yes. That's all I could say. And then I went through. And then went to the youth hostel, took the New York Times, and looked for anything I could do in the New York Times. I mean, it sounds really crazy, but that's what happened. So I started working as a French tutor, French babysitter, anything in Manhattan. And then I went to Hunter College at the admission office and said to them, how do we get to that school? I went to all the universities in New York. So I went to Columbia, Hunter, downtown, everywhere. And I've been accepted to Hunter because it was the cheapest as well, the only one I could afford. But I literally, again, at the time, no internet, nothing. It was fax. Huh? So how to get to the school. There was an exam to take, the TOEFL to take, all those kind of things. I had no idea, right? So I just worked on those while I was working, and then I passed all the exams. At the time, the baccalaureate, I don't know if it's still valid. So everything above 10 out of 20 was counted as credits for the American system. I don't know if it's still true, because I know now the level has decreased a bit. But at the time, so because I had pretty good grade in math and other very strong matières, that gave me credit. And how many credits do you need to graduate undergrad in the US, do you know? 120. So it's a 4-year program. So already I got in school, I actually can't remember now, but I've already probably got 20 to 30 credits already given to me just by my grades at baccalaureate. So it was already a big win for me. Where was a big loss was my score in English. Terrible. So I had to take English classes with all the foreign students, and I had to pay for that. That really killed me. So I had to do that. And then I didn't know what I wanted to study. Okay, so you guys already know me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did economics when I was in high school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do as a student. So the good thing for me was the American system, where the first 2 years, you can just take anything you want. You don't have to declare your major. So it was just lucky. So I took anthropology, Black African American history, very random classes, and I took economics 100. And I loved economics 100 first semester. Second semester, I'm like, let's take economics 101 and economics 102, micro and micro. I kept on liking it. So every semester I took more economics, right? And then I declared my major, economics. And then I graduated with an, undergrad in economics. And then I decided to go for the master as well at Hunter College. And I did a master in economics. You're going to tell me, how did you pay for all of this, right? Because my parents are, again, I'm the oldest of 5. We're from middle-class Lille. How do you pay for this? Next one. This is how I paid for it. So I'm a strong believer. It doesn't always work. But when you're hungry and you have no money, you become extremely resourceful. And I was lucky enough to meet people at school. And in this case, you make very good friends very quickly, because we are all hungry, all with no money, all international students. So very quickly, we developed a whole network. We decided to rent the same flats, affordable flats. We were lucky to find a rent control flat. So I lived in Manhattan, yes, Upper West Side. You're going to say I'm very lucky, but I'm just telling you the good parts. I'm not telling you, but so this is all the path. And we decided to sell on eBay. It was the beginning of eBay. Tiffany lamps, lithograph, anything, any kind of arts we could find in New York, so we could sell to the rest of the USA. And because we were all international students, we were coming from South Korea, Israel, many European countries, Africa. We had an eye for culture that the rest of outside of New York didn't have. So we knew what to buy and what would sell. And this is how we paid for our schooling for the next 6 years. Housing, schooling, and food, and everything related to school. That's how. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, good. Next one. Then, so when you studied in the US, I think it's the same in France, and you're an international student, you get a 1-year work visa after. Okay, so the company doesn't need to sponsor you. So I was lucky to work in financial technology, which is, how do we call the industry when you say financial technology? Fintech. So that was 25 years ago now. So it was really the beginning of fintech, and I worked in Soho for a company called Antepo, and the company got sold to Adobe. So it was a really, really good coup here. And ultimately, I loved that job. I worked. I was a sales there, so we had big client. Merrill Lynch was a big one. Sony Game was another one, and I really loved it. Unfortunately, and that's always a problem when you work outside of the EU, the visa is an issue. So after staying for 10 years on the American land, I couldn't renew my visa. You're going to tell me you couldn't marry an American? I know. I didn't find the husband, the partner. So here, couldn't stay. So what do you do when you can't stay? And you're like a French girl. You're by now 29. What do you do? Where do you go? Canada. American light, cold, the drive, the hunger. I was still like looking for an adventure. I wanted more. It was Toronto, Vancouver. I was not interested in Montreal. Montreal is amazing, by the way, guys, and it's very easy to get a visa as a French person. I know you're all you want an international. I know everything about every visa pretty much in the world, so because it's been a problem for all my life. Canada, very easy, but I never go for the simple and easy, apparently. Canada, very easy. It's a point system, just to let you know. And you already have which year are you in? 3rd year. So you already have a lot of points just being French speaker and with a high education and being young. So pretty much you can find jobs in Canada if you're interested. I love Canada, but it was not for me at the time. Okay, and at the time it was 2004, 2005. It was another time. So where do you go after Canada? It was a time of cool Britannia as well, with, Jamie Oliver, Love Actually, Notting Hill. But I was not interested because it was too Europe. I knew it too much. South America, I could have, but where were all the companies? Yes, China. All the companies were moving. So we can go to the next one. Thank you. Ooh. So sorry, just to go back on. So I went from this culture, which is the American culture, and I will be eternally grateful to the US, to New York City, to everybody that helped me along the way, because they gave me my education. But it's a very different culture than our culture, right? So everything is time is money, everything now, business first, say what you mean, keep things short, do it yourself, very look at me, competition trumps cooperation, change means progress, materialism is freedom. It's obviously a generality, but it's very American, correct? Yes. Someone said no? No? Okay. Next one, please. So then, the next big thing, to be honest, I wanted to go to Japan. That was my number one choice. Turns out Japan is a very patriarchal society and very closed down, so it's actually very, very hard to get into Japan. So my first choice was, and my option was the Hong Kong. So Hong Kong in 2005, it was unbeknown to me at that time. Hong Kong in 2005, where all the French company had the purchasing office. We had our buying office. Leroy Merlin was there, Auchan was there, Decathlon was there. All the French from the northern French company are there, right? But we are buyers. We have all our factories in China. We manufacture everywhere, all over the country of China. The buying office is in Hong Kong. But then at that time, they added another office. China was producing for the entire planet Earth, but then in 2000, what was China doing as well? Not just producing. They were buying. So all of a sudden, they were producing, and now they were purchasing our products. So for the French luxury brands mainly, the L'Oréal, all those companies, obviously Decathlon, all of a sudden, we were manufacturing in China, but now they were becoming our customers. So we had offices in Hong Kong to purchase, but now we need to build new offices with marketing and sales department to sell to them our products, right? So it was a new time. It was 2004, 2005, until 2015. I stayed in Hong Kong, and I worked for French luxury brands, and I mainly worked in China. So I would come back on the weekend in Hong Kong or spend the weekend in China, depending on the production, etc. So Hong Kong, obviously, amazing, amazing town, city. It's a city-state, double state. Very easy to get a visa. And are you going to tell me, how did I get my job? Are you asking me this question? Okay, thank you. What is the first stop as a French person? It's going to be so old school for you. There was no LinkedIn at the time, okay? So what do you think is the first thing you do as a French person who arrived? Bear in mind, I did the same as in New York. Except in New York, I picked up the New York Times. Here, what did I do when I arrived in Hong Kong? What do you do? You're a French person, you're hungry, you want to work. Where do you go? French Chamber of Commerce. The French Chamber of Commerce is everywhere in the world. They're here to help you. So I contacted them in New York, and I emailed them at the time, it was email. So I said, I'm looking for a job and opportunity in Hong Kong. This is my, I sent the resume, this is what I've done. And they said, come to Hong Kong, we'll set up all the appointments for you. Okay, this is what I did. So I came to Hong Kong with no job again. Okay, so it's very risky. But again, this is why I said from the beginning, it's not for everyone what I did. Okay? So here I arrived in Hong Kong. They lined up a lot of appointments with different companies for me. Why do they do that? Because they get money. It's like the French Chamber of Commerce, at least in Hong Kong, it's like a headhunting companies. They work with all the French companies, and we have thousands of French companies in Hong Kong. The booklet, you can buy it for Hong Kong. I think it's 20 euros. It's like that thick of how many French companies are based in Hong Kong, okay? So it's a lot. And then I told them what I was looking for, and then they set up all the appointments for me for the next 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks I got a job. Okay? And you're going to say, where did you sleep? So at the beginning, I didn't know anybody, so I asked all my network in New York, do you know anybody in Hong Kong? And they sent me to a friend of a friend who did Dauphine with a friend and who was on a VIE contract. Have you looked at the contract VIE? You have not. That's a mistake. Look at it. It's a fantastic contract, right? You know what it is a little bit or not? Yes. So it's a government contract. It's like if you do. I've never done VIE, but I had many friends who've done it and who have beautiful careers. So look at it better than I'm going to tell you something, but I'm not 100% sure everything is still correct and still valid. But at my time, it was like le service militaire. Mais tu le fais en tant que civil. So c'est un service militaire civil. Again, I'm giving you all the information because I'm going to be 48, so I don't know what's the update on VIE contract. So it was civil service, and so you worked for French company internationally. So I had a lot of friends who were working. I'm more on a finance system. So for me, it was they were working in New York and they were at Sogé, Calion, BNP. Okay, so that was all the VIE for New York. And in Hong Kong, it was a VIE à la BNP. Okay, so here VIE, look it up. It's about 18 to 24 to 36 months, maybe, contract. So you're not very well paid, but you're very pampered. They give you housing. When you live in New York or Hong Kong City, it's very important to get housing because housing is extremely important, extremely expensive. And then obviously you have the job security in a way, and most likely because they had you as a veilleur for a few years, they will keep you. You know what I mean? So then you get a full-time position, they sponsor your visa, they take care of all these parts for you. Okay, so it's definitely mainly for you engineers. There's a lot of veilleur options, okay? Mainly in Asia. I mean, everywhere in the world, they're asking for French engineers, to be honest. But you need to really roll up the sleeves and look everywhere. So that's for the veilleur. But for me, I went straight to the Chamber of Commerce, again, told them what I was looking for. A lot of job opportunities. Now, getting a work visa in Hong Kong is not difficult. So once the company sponsor you, again, they depend massively on foreigners. It's a bit like Dubai, it's a bit like Singapore. Those are cities that need foreigners, skilled laborers. You know what I mean? Canada is the same. They're looking for skilled labor, and you guys are definitely in the category of skilled laborers. So go there. So that's for Hong Kong. So I worked in Hong Kong for 10 years. Sorry, what is my timer? I can speak 4 hours. But my timer is here, but it turned off, so I don't know. 27, okay. So worked in China for 10 years, absolutely loved everything. I can't even tell you, because for me, I'm someone who loves different cultures. I love the food. I'm very curious. So for me, this is why I'm saying it's not for everybody, the career I chose, because it's almost, first I choose a destination and then the career, which is not probably the right thing to do, but for me it goes together. And for me, a job in France might be very boring if I was doing the same job, but if I do it in China, it's not boring. You know what I mean? So again, it's not for everyone. I really want to stress that point. We are all different, and you have to really know yourself. So I loved working in China at that time. I can tell you I've seen China grow so fast over 2005 and 2015. It was a remarkable time. I worked, can we go to the next slide? I'll stand up. I worked here. So I lived here. I want to share with you what's happening here. I lived here, obviously, Hong Kong Island. And this is China right here. And that's Shenzhen. Have you ever heard of Shenzhen? For engineers in numeric, you should have heard of Shenzhen, right? Yes? No? It's the Silicon Valley of China. So it's something amazing. When I arrived in Shenzhen in 2015, it was very much factories, because what happened in the 90s, China, Beijing decided to have a special, actually even 80s, a special area here where it was all factories owned by Hong Kongers. So all the Hong Kongers were manufacturing in China and would sell to the rest of the world. Okay, that was the deal. So this whole place, which was all fishermen villages before, became a really, within 50 years, a super duper industrial zone. So here we had factories all over here. This is just like a subway train. It's like c'est un métro, the Hong Kong Island to Shenzhen, and then you have the border. So it's very strange. You feel like you're in the same town without being in the same town. Shenzhen, 2005, was very industrial again, very factory-oriented, very China. Shenzhen, 2015, when I left, it was like, I was in another, it was like, I'm going to exaggerate. Do you remember The Fifth Element from Luc Besson? It was a bit like that vibe. It was growing so fast and so techy. So Shenzhen now, because of COVID, everything has changed because China really closed down for a while. But Shenzhen now, you could go to a hotel, just check in with your phone, enter in your room with your phone, order food via your phone, and have a robot delivering when you ordered food delivery. This is how techy and how innovative the city has moved. Extremely fast. So that was my life, and I had obviously I had partner factories. everywhere ultimately in China. China started to open up more and more and more to now where you can have obviously factories everywhere in the entire country. So I was in Hong Kong for 10 years, doing pretty much that, working with French luxury brands because, of course, as we all know, the LVMH, the Richemont of the world, now they are top customers. Used to be Japanese in the 80s, the American in the 90s, and now it's obviously the Chinese. Now, unfortunately, the Chinese market is slowing down for multiple reasons. So this might have a hit on our French luxury brands. But meaning all the LVMH will have offices in Hong Kong and then in China, in Shanghai, but we will have the sales and marketing offices there. I know you're engineers, so it's not so much of your field, but just to give you a little bit of background. At the same time, China, it's a bit harder to get a work visa. It's always easier to go via Hong Kong. But at the same time, I know they're looking always, I don't know so much for the other engineers, but I know regarding numeric, there is always a demand. I worked, so just for numeric people, I'm not a super tech person, but I'm part of the French tech. Do you know what is a French tech? Who is in numeric? Raise your hand. Okay, that's good, that's good. Okay, so look it up. The French tech, we are everywhere on the entire planet Earth. We have a little office. It's a volontariat. So I'm part of French Tech Kuala Lumpur and French Tech Singapore. So this is how it works. I think the program started 10 years ago. Look it up on LinkedIn already. Go on French Tech Now LinkedIn, d'accord? And after that, you can have a LinkedIn for every cities in the world for the French Tech. It's a little rooster, the logo. So here the French Tech is the French companies who are located in Hanoi, in Shanghai, in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. I'm talking to you about the part of the world where I come from, but it's everywhere for obviously Europe. French Tech is obviously here in Lille at Euratech. But if you want to go a bit more exotic, since you're into this session as on international, look at the French Tech in Europe, or US, or Canada, Asia, obviously South America, Africa. We are absolutely everywhere. You contact them, you tell them what you want to do and what kind of internship you're looking for, and then we'll pass the resume among each other. Okay? Any questions regarding the French Tech? Okay, so massive network on this one. So now you have the French Chamber of Commerce, you have the VEU, you have the French Tech. I'm just going to keep on talking. So now I'm still in China and in Hong Kong more importantly. So again, yes, China, difficult to get a work visa. So best to go via Hong Kong, create new network. And then after that, if you really want to go to China, find your way in. Probably asking your company to send you, let's say, wherever you are, if they have an office in Shanghai, if you can be transferred to in Shanghai, right? So I'm in Hong Kong, and we haven't talked about my personal life, but here, this is where I met my husband, and he's from Malaysia. So I married a Malaysian man. So i.e., after 3 kids, a dog in a tiny apartment, because we all live in Hong Kong is renowned for its extremely expensive real estate. It was time for us to move to a more kid-friendly and more cheaper city when you have children, because do you know how much is a French international school in Hong Kong? Because I have 3 kids there. 20,000 euros per year, maternelle, 3 children, plus housing, plus, anyway, we were just working at this stage just to pay bills. So when you are an expat, which I've never been, just so you know, and you want to build a family, if you are on expat contract, you're single, doesn't really matter. As soon as you have a family and you are on expat contract, this is ka-ching, okay? Because normally the company will pay for the housing and for the kids' education. So this is where a big regret for me. I was happy to make more money because I was single, but once I had 3 kids, a dog, I would have been happier to have less money, but for them to pay, if you do the math, you know what I mean? Because it cost me so much to pay everything individually. So this is something to keep in mind. this is one of my small regrets here, not to have gone through an expat contract. Trying to think. Yeah, so I met my husband, Malaysian. So we decided it would be easier with young children to move to Malaysia. It's more kids friendly. So here, it's not a regret because my kids took advantage of it, but I think it took a hit on my career. So I moved from New York, from Hong Kong to a third-tier city. And it's a bit of a regret on that one, for career-wise. But for my kids, it was amazing. Because then we had a big house, we had a driver, it was another life for them. Okay, next one, please. Okay, next one as well. Okay, so here, just a reminder, this is a Chinese culture. So I went from the American culture, which is what we call a direct culture, to a very indirect culture. So I went to a very individualistic culture to a very collectivistic culture. And I had to change the entire way I was working. Although I was working with mainly Western brands and French customers, but my partners in China were all obviously Chinese. So in order to work together, you have to work as well the Asian style. It's not just Chinese, it's called the Guangxi. You probably will hear it later on in your career, mainly if you're in Asia. The Guangxi is very much you have to build relationship before you start even doing business together. So it's a longer way to provide, in order to do business when in the US, it's very easy. We send the contract, both parties signs, we start working together. In China, not at all. You can't sign the contract like that and we start producing. So there's a little bit more relationship to be built before of trust. And to this day, I've been working with some Chinese partners because I have my own business, which I built in Kuala Lumpur. And we've been working now for 8 years, and it's all we don't even have signed contracts. But we've been working together for 8 years, and it's all Guangxi, all on relationship based. Anyway, oh yes, China, you have the 996 work culture. Do you know where that comes from? Okay, have you heard about Jack Ma? No, yes, who's Jack Ma? I see the engineer here. Yes, almost 9 a.m., 9 p.m., 6 days a week. So it's from Jack Ma, the founder of Lazada. So it's a bit like our Jeff Bezos for us, the founder of Amazon, right? So he created this culture. So you have to be very careful here because the French, you might be used to the 35 hours a week. So US, obviously, 35 hours a week does not work. It's not even understandable. We are more at 50 to 55 hours a week. You know the 5 weeks of holiday. I think how many weeks of holiday they have here? I don't know. A lot. No one else provides those. So you have to as well remember that. Once you work on a local contract, you don't have so many so much free time, okay? So China, same. I think my first contract was 10 business days of holiday a year, which is hard because your family is on the other side of the globe. So you have already 1 day of traveling, which is taken away from your holidays, right? But I believe everything is negotiable. So you can take maybe some non-paid leaves, everything is up to negotiation. Once you prove yourself, obviously. So this is, yes, thank you. Next one. So then I moved to Kuala Lumpur. You can move to the next one. So Kuala Lumpur is obviously the capital of, even next one as well, the capital of Malaysia. Next slide. So here I moved to Kuala Lumpur, and when I arrived in Kuala Lumpur, so we own properties there. But what do you do? So for once I had housing, okay? Because before that in New York I had no housing when I arrived, and Hong Kong neither, pretty much. So here I had housing, but I had no jobs. So what do I do again? French Chamber of Commerce, right? So I go to the French Chamber of Commerce. However, for you guys it might be easier because Malaysia is always looking for engineering. They're building the country, right? So they're always building a new highway. They need French engineers. So, and they are very much in commodities. They work in petroleum. So a lot of engineers in commodities. I'm an economist who worked with French luxury brands. Okay, so there was nothing for me. I couldn't find work or work that was decently paid for what I wanted to do. So it's because I moved to a third-tier city here. So this is why I'm saying it was career-wise not so good. So I decided to build my own company because I just couldn't work. And the average salary was too low if I wanted to do what I wanted to do for another company. So I was thinking I might as well just build something, see where it leads, and make probably at the beginning 0, but at least it's something interesting to me. Okay, so I build, sorry, can we go to the next one? Thank you. I build a small store. Do you know what is Naturalia? Okay, so I built a mini Naturalia for Kuala Lumpur. It's called the Hive Eco Store. I started extremely slow and extremely small. I'm not going to get into detail. That would be another class, which would be on entrepreneurship, because here for the essence of time. Because what time is it now? The time? 42, yes. Okay, so I have 15 minutes to wrap it up, and then we have questions. So I'm going to go quick. So here, I started very small. I started behind a yoga studio. I'm going to cut it short for you. Within 2 years, it was doing very, very well. We started to launch our own brand as well, which is called The Hive. So at the beginning, I was selling multiple brands, right, from many Western brands and the food and everything. So I had food, kitchen, and bathroom. And then very quickly, I changed the strategy. I see what was selling. And I was like, I'm going to build my own brand obviously having a higher margin and selling it for cheaper for the local population. So win-win everywhere. And thanks to that, sorry, can I get to the next slide? Oh yeah, we can even move there. So here's it would be for a class on entrepreneurship and leadership. So that wouldn't be, I'm not going to get into detail. Yeah, so that's just my team. We're a small team. We're about 25 because I have a lot of retail stores. So I have a lot of people working on sales team on the ground, but in management, back office, I keep it super small because as soon as we are too many, I feel like it's mismanaged. To each his own again. Obviously here, Ida, who's the office manager, and I'm not here, I'm a virtual manager. Ida is doing everything. She's my number 2, and she is doing everything that is requesting, groundwork. So she's a person to do that. But yes, that's about it for the management team. Yeah, again, it would be for a class of leadership and management. I'm not going to get into details. Next one. So those are some of the products we sell under our brand. So this is the markup for those are about 80% to 90%. So this is where you make money because it's your own brand, right? So everything is made in China. I couldn't work with the previous partner because I had partners in China for 10 years prior to that, but we didn't work in silicon. This is silicon mainly. This is metal, stainless steel. You guys are engineers, you know what I'm talking about. Bamboo, stainless steel, silicon. Those are all my partners in China. And obviously so we're specialists. We are the leaders. It's super niche. We are the leaders in sustainable feminine care. So leaders in washable sanitary pads, period underwear, and menstrual cup in Singapore and Malaysia. So if you Google my name, it will be all about pads, cups, and underwear in Singapore and Malaysia. Okay. So this is it. So all our partners, we've been selling those products since the beginning. Pretty much within the first year with the pads, I decided to have our own brand on the pads rather than sell other people's brand. Do you want to hear a small story? Okay. So in Hong Kong, one of my office was, in Hong Kong, I was not in the Hong Kong part where you have all the fancy lawyers and the fancy bankers. I was in the traders Hong Kong, okay? So it's where you are in big towers, full of, Hong Kongers. The food is very Hong Kong, which I love. I can eat Chinese food every day, so I don't mind. But I was not with any Westerners. So every time you would see a Westerner, you would sort of like, click, let's have lunch. You have someone to talk to because you have to understand in Hong Kong, once you leave Central, it's all Cantonese speaking. They don't speak very good English. So boom, we have lunch, and her name is Gaëlle, so French lady. You have a lot of French people in Hong Kong. And I'm like, oh, what do you do? And she does washable diapers for babies. And I'm like, wow, that's unusual, super cool, blah, blah. And I'm like, she goes to my office, I go to her office, I go to her office. So a girl is my age. At the time, she's like 31, 32. I go to her office, like on the 30th floor, you know, everything is with heavy lift for machinery. So it's like a loft, but not a loft, okay? It's like Hong Kong, Chinese style, huh? So loft, but like greedy, dirty. She opens it, and then I don't know how many square feet was that. Huge, 1,000 square foot of just diapers, baby diapers, washable baby, all hers. Whole her brand. It's called Charlie Banana. Google it. She still exists. She did so well. She got the market of Walmart. What is Walmart? It's a #1 retail company in the USA. Now she doesn't live in New York, in Hong Kong. Where does she live? LA. Yes. She did so well. So I had stars in my eyes when I went to her. It's not an office. It's a warehouse. I was like, Gail, I can't believe you're my age. You have your own brand, and this is what it does, right? It's hard work, don't get me wrong. And before that, she was working for an Aussie company who was doing diapers. So pretty much she took the factories and put her own brand on it. But, you know, that's capitalism. So in KL, I was selling her baby diapers. And then I went to her factories in China, and I made the pads at her factory. So that's for the small story, because it's a cool story at the end of the day. It's very inspirational, because you have two French ladies here meeting in Hong Kong, in the greedy part of Hong Kong. It's in the New Territories. And we just had lunch, and we kept in touch, and now she's 10 times more, 100 times more successful than I am, but still extremely inspirational. So here, her factory is still making my pads, and we've been working with her now 8 years. I sold hundreds of thousands of washable sanitary pads now. Okay, next one. So this is a bit of a breakdown of our revenue, and this is going to be for the numeric engineers. I'm so sorry for the engineers in agro. I'm not so familiar with, but with agro, there's a lot to do anyway. Look at in food tech, there's a lot of food tech. You know, you're aware of that, guys. You are aware of all the food tech industry. You must be, yes. Okay, so this is how the breakdown of the sale of the Hive are very basic. At the end of the day, it's 50% online, 50% offline, and the two marketplaces for Asia are Shopee and Lazada, but that's Southeast Asia. Northern Asia, you have Tmall, you have Lazada, of course, Alibaba, and all the Tencent company. I'm saying this why? Because I didn't know them in Hong Kong, but I think the marketplace really developed a little bit after, when I was already in KL. So here I met the whole Lazada team for Malaysia. So Lazada, again, it's Alibaba team, because we sell on them and we are big customers, because obviously we give ad spend every day. So I met the team, and guess where they were from? Do you think they were Chinese? Guess who was the Lazada team? French engineers. The French engineers built the Lazada team for Southeast Asia. I know they built it from Philippines and Malaysia and I think Singapore. Guess who is the boss of, I'm going to say something else. What is it? What is this? What is this very fancy LVMH just bought some shares? Vestiaire Collective. Matthias, what's his name? He's in Singapore. He was in Singapore. Then he moved to France. He's an ex-Lazada guy. Okay, so it's all tech here, all Southeast Asia tech. So here I'm saying there's a lot of opportunities. You just have to be at the right place at the right time. You know, you have to push your luck. But check out the French Chamber of Commerce. Yes, to I mean, you go from Manila. Manila, obviously, the income is much lower, but the city is super cool. So Manila, check Hanoi. Those are developing countries, but do not underestimate them. And it's a trampoline if you want to go after two bigger cities, right? So look at those options. Do not close down any doors, right? Check on LinkedIn, obviously, all those places as well. But the French tech is everywhere, so contact them. Okay? Yes, that's all I want to say. Yes, I got a prize from the United Nations. Yes, thank you for my work. I'm the one in the middle. If you're looking, where am I at? Shorter hair. Thank you. Okay, so here, this is my last little slide for you guys. I want to say, you know, I really traveled the world. I was very lucky for everything, but everything is obviously extremely hard work. I'm introducing it to you like it was easy, but it was not easy. Okay, everything is a lot of hard work, but at the same time, we have a lot of determination. I believe if you have health, that everything is possible. I slept on floors. When I opened my store, I was behind the cashier. I was vacuuming myself. What am I saying? Vacuuming, brooming. We didn't have vacuum. Brooming myself. You know, I was doing everything. You know, humbling because by then I was already 40. I was 40 years old. So there is no such thing as too low for me, if you know what I mean. So here, I'm just going to say you're part of the very, very lucky people on this planet Earth, because I worked in very, very poor countries, you see. And my husband is from a fairly poor country as well, Malaysia. And obviously I lived and worked there for 8 years. So I'm going to say you're very, very lucky. Just to be French, you know how many, you know, we are representing what is the percentage of French people on the entire planet Earth? It's very simple. We're about 70 million, we're about 7 billion. 1%, a bit less than 1%. Okay, so we're the 7th power on the planet Earth, so that's not negligible if we're only 1% of the planet population. So already it says a lot. We're very, very lucky just to be in such a good country where we have good education, where we have healthcare and everything. So, and you're here at Junior. So your parents are paying for this amazing school. You've been accepted with obviously your brain and everything. So here we are again, even luckier just to be here. So you're part of the 0.1% of the planet Earth. And let me tell you, I met a lot of Indians and a lot of Chinese in my life, 1 billion each. They all want to be you. So they're all very hungry. And they want to be the next French, okay, or the Americans. I mean, they don't care about us. They just bulldoze everything. I'm a bit scared, but I'm like, we are so innovative and we are so adaptable. So I'm scared without being scared. But just be aware of the competition. They're getting more and more educated, more and more open. The countries are opening. So this is going to create, and you know, you've heard about the Indian engineers. Yes. My husband is Indian descent, and I taught a class at ITT Madras. You know this? Very tough. So in any case, I just want to say you're part of the very, very, very lucky one. Just be aware of that. So really embrace your life. Make the most of it. Return to the community, because here the community gave you a lot. You got this education, you know, you had great parents to push you to get to where you are now. So give back to the community as well, but just don't waste your life, because we're really part of the lucky one on this planet Earth, right? We are lucky to be born in a great country with a lot of freedoms. And so here, make the most of it. That's all I'm just going to say. I'm not your parents, but it's just a quick reminder, because I've seen very severe poverty. So this is the end of my talk. Oh, I have another thing. You must be wondering, why am I back in Lille? Yes. Okay, so this is why I'm saying France has an amazing healthcare system. And I have 3 children, and one of my child needed special care, but for a couple of years. So I need to come back to France, and since I'm from Lille, I came back to Lille. And she has special care, which we could not have in Kuala Lumpur. We probably could have had it in Singapore, but it would have cost me probably a house. for that special care. So here we are here because of France healthcare system, just because of that. And now, hold on, my kids are at Thérèse Davila, and I pay 10,000 euros per year with canteen, so for 3 kids. So I'm really happy with the school fees. So just a quick reminder of how lucky we are, because even when we are internationally, we have a severe problem, we come back home. Okay, and I'm one of those. Okay, so now I can take the questions. Yes, that's the end. That's my last slide. Yes, thank you. Any questions? Oui. Oui, la VIE, V-I-E. Oui, l'acronyme. I don't know what it stands for. You can just check the acronym VIE en français. Okay, so now you have few of my maybe old tips. I don't know how accurate it is now in 2024. French Chamber of Commerce, VIE, French Tech. Okay. Any questions? Nothing. I thought you all wanted to move internationally. Where do you want to go? Where? Sorry. Huh? Japan. Japan, amazing, but I'm so sorry, I'm going to break a little bit your dream here. Very difficult, they only speak Japanese. Even in Tokyo, I mean, it's starting to open a little bit. Obviously, you're an engineer and you're like robotic, all those kind of things, you probably get thinking. It's true, but because of the language barrier, it's very hard. And Japanese are, they obviously, they have Westerners and they have expatriates, but very, very little because the country is very closed. They like tourists because they like the money of the tourists, but they don't like us to stay. They're very, it's a country where it's, you know, the pure race. And they don't really want us to stay. Now, Japan is obviously a very aging population, so they have to open their doors to immigration. But still, in 2024, they do not want to open the doors. Do you know that the Korean descent in Japan, for third generation, are still called Korean? Do you know? The CEO of SoftBank is a Korean descent. He's still called Korean. His grandparents were Korean. That's it. His parents were born in Japan. But so it is Japan. As much as I love Japan, I've been to Japan many, many times. But it's just very hard to work. It was my first choice too. Now you have more chance because you're a male, and it's a very patriarchal society. So you might be more accepted than I am. But it's a bit really difficult. You really have to find the French company who can sponsor you. It will never be a Japanese company. So focus on the French, call the French Chamber of Commerce in Tokyo and see what they have and ask them. But if you can't Japan, go for Korea, much more friendlier on that note, which is not the same, you're going to tell me, I know, but it's still in the same area. Yes?
Oui, j'ai une question.
Yes.
Plus tard, est-ce que vous voulez vous poser ou vous continuez à voyager encore?
Alors, that's a good question. So my husband doesn't speak French. Look, he lives in London, so we are between Lille and London, which is very easy with your Eurostar. So I'm not sure where I want to be later on in my life. It's kind of weird because now I have children, right? So I have to think about that too. To be honest, we still have, obviously for us, Singapore and Malaysia is very important. So I'm very lucky that I built all those network in Singapore, Malaysia, obviously Hong Kong and London. But at the moment, weirdly enough, I'm actually at 48 with 3 kids. I mean, I have twins who are 11 and my oldest is now 13. I have an old dog with me. I'm okay. But obviously, I'm working on something else. I'm working on a career where I can, my point is here, but I'm consulting and I travel as I'm consulting. I'm only thinking now, but I'm sending my resume. At 48, I'm still sending resumes. And this week, I sent 2 resumes, one in India and one in Malaysia for the consulting. I'm planting seeds. I'm going to get a lot of doors slammed on my face. This I know. But see, at 48, there is no pride. I don't care. I'm going to knock, I'm going to beg, I'm going to steal, I'm going to do anything in my power to ultimately get what I want. So this you have to bear in mind.
Merci.
You're welcome. Any countries, if I know, many Asian or European, otherwise I'm not sure. South America, Latin America, LATAM, I don't really know, and Africa neither. Yes. Visa-wise, or like living conditions and visa-wise too? Living conditions, I don't even care. You know, I was probably extremely poor when I was a student, but you don't care because you're in New York and you're with other poor students, so we have no idea. You're surrounded by poor people, you know, and we are all, it's like you guys, you probably have no money, but you still manage to go out, have beers, and have pizza. So it was my life too, you know. To be honest, I was probably extremely poor, and when I look back, yes, but it didn't matter to me because you have a goal, right? You know where to go. So it's not like this is my life condition, I'm going to be like that till the rest of my life. No. So to me, everything, if this is how you have to keep your mindset. It's all about mindset too, right? You have to always stay positive. What is your objective? For me, it was graduating, then work, finding it, you know. So there was always another step. So living condition, I was lucky I had a rent control, but we were a lot in that rent control. And I never faced, again, I was super lucky. I'm a French lady in New York at 18. Can you imagine? The world is a bit your oyster. You know what I mean? Plus, I'm cute. I'm sorry to say. I was cute. So, and you're cute too. So the doors will be open to you too. You're all very young and cute. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Take advantage of everything you have. You're French. People want. In New York, I have to say, I worked, okay, so it's time to drop down names. I worked for a lot of celebrities because you're French. So I worked at the French International School. Funnily enough, later on, my kids go to the French International School, but I worked at the French International School. So there I babysat, I taught French to a lot of very, very famous people. But you guys, you would not know Kevin Kline. I mean, those are actors from the 90s. Sigourney Weaver, you might know. No. Alien. No, yeah, you don't know it. It was actors in the 90s, 2000. So I did a lot of work for them because for them it was very important to have their kids speaking French. So, yes. But you have to take advantage. I know you're thinking, well, I'm not going to take advantage of being French. But you have to take advantage of it because life is hard. So anything you can use is a tool. Okay, so don't feel like bad because you have other nationalities next to you and you're thinking they don't have as many opportunities as you do. It's true, but you're already at a disfavor compared to the Americans. So use whatever you have at your advantage here. And everywhere in the world, it's the same. So here being French is a massive advantage. People usually love us. Americans a bit harder anywhere else in the world, but usually people are very open to the French culture. They love the French. They're very curious. So take advantage of it. And I see the French internationally. We are usually very curious about all the other cultures. We have tour guides in all the cities, and it's always very funny because sometimes you're in the beach anywhere in Southeast Asia, in a shack, and you're eating like a cold beer on the sand that you bought at a shack in the middle of nowhere. Guess who's going to be the white tourist next to you? It's not going to be a Swede. It's not going to be a German. It's going to be a French. I mean, you're trying to stay away from them, but ultimately we're like magnets. We're seeing each other, and it's just we're very curious, and we are normally beloved. So we obviously, because we are normally very cordial with the other culture. We eat the food, we drink the alcohol, we try to respect the cultures. So French normally are appreciated worldwide, I find. So use it. Any other questions? Yes. In Europe, I think you guys, the common language is anyway English, right? So in Europe, you guys, everything is easy for you in Europe. You have the work visa already, right? So now it's just finding the job, right? One thing at a time. I would go to the French Chamber of Commerce again, because you can't, like, let's say you want to work in Germany. You can't go to a German company, a factory. I don't know where you want to go, but let's say you want to try to one of those Volkswagen, whatever it is. You can't go with your French resume on LinkedIn. That's not going to work. You have to go to the Peugeot factory in Germany and say, hey, because there will be already a minimum of a link. I know the French, we don't want to go to the French. We're like, let's go something where it's more interesting for me, a different company, right, a different culture. But at the end of the day, there is too much friction. I receive a lot of resumes every day for my company in Kuala Lumpur. I will only take the French. I'm not going to take an Italian, although we already have affinities, but I'm more inclined to take a French than another culture. Do you know what I mean? It's just because it's already going to be hard to train you. We already have some facility on the common ground of the culture here. Do you know what I mean? It's just a question of like removing the friction here. It has nothing to do with, I'm not going to take the French person. It's just because it's easier for the companies. So go to the French companies who are already everywhere in Europe.
Okay, so you got to first land in a French company in the foreign country and then move laterally from there?
Yes. To meet, you have a country in mind? I feel
Germany.
Germany is easy as well because we have a lot of relationship. France-Germany, of course, and Germany is our #1 partner in France. This is the country where we purchase the most in Europe and in the world. So Germany is our #1 partner. I see this. Now, for each big cities in Germany, I'm sure there is a French, there must have a French, not Chamber of Commerce, that will be only in Berlin, or maybe just Munich. I don't know where is the manufacturing, how do they divide. But here I would go look at LinkedIn. Are you in technology? Technology? No. Engineering only or technology?
Yeah, technology.
Technology, but look at the French tech. They must be everywhere in Germany. And go, yes, start with the French way. I didn't want to do that. I was a bit of a snob. I was like, no, I want to work for the local, too hard. Go this way, and then you pivot. You get your foot already in the country, you have your job, you have housing, there are 1 or 2 years, and then you understand, you see where you want to go. 2 years later, you try to find another job somewhere else. Okay? Many of the German, they need, it's a culturally, they need to know you before they hire you. So, yes. Any other questions?
S'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez en parler un peu moins fort, faire moins
yes, and if you have questions, you can ask me on LinkedIn as well at Claire Sancelot.
20 minutes.
So you can send me a message. I usually try to reply. Any other country? No? Oui? Switzerland, hard one. Yeah. Zurich, yeah.
There's a lot of job offers that are in German. Do you recommend us to also try to apply to this kind of offer, or only applies to the French one?
For Switzerland, okay, Zurich, obviously German speaking, a bit harder, but I would do the same as in Germany. I would go first to Genève, get the work visa, because Switzerland, that's a problem, the work visa. I think in Switzerland, don't get me wrong, but if you live in, it's like Hong Kong, I didn't mention that to you, very important information, you guys. I forgot about Switzerland, but if you lived for a certain amount of years in Switzerland, for me, Hong Kong, if I work and live in Hong Kong for 7 years, then they give you Hong Kong citizenship. So I have Hong Kong citizenship, and my 3 kids have Hong Kong permanent residence. Okay, so that's important to know. So now in Hong Kong, I don't need to go back, wait for a work visa if I want to work. Although Hong Kong, I'm expecting mainland China, Beijing to say revoked. We don't want any foreigners, and if you were not Hong Kong, because Hong Kong Chinese, if you're Chinese descent, you get nationality right away. But for us, it's going to just be permanent resident. Okay. So here for Switzerland, they give you the citizenship, although they don't give it to you. After multiple years, you have to check on that, how many years. I would start first with Geneva, and then, because you will make more money, I think, in Zurich, then you crawl your way to Zurich. Is that the same? Do you think it's the same as in Geneva?
Yeah, it's quite similar. Like
quite similar salaries? Okay. But if you want to work in Zurich, it's it's harder. The culture is is actually greatly different between the 2 cities. Huh? But I would definitely start. Do you speak German then?
No, absolutely not. I'm looking for Geneva, but also for Zurich for French offers.
Okay.
I'm mainly for Geneva.
And you would be working for a German-speaking company in Zurich, ultimately, if it's your dream?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Like international.
And you're French or you're not French?
Yeah, I'm French.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so I would start with Geneva. Easier. Again, don't go for too complicated at the beginning. Go to the least trouble path, as we say, Geneva, and then, yes, bump them to Zurich. And start counting your points and hire a labor law lawyer so you know how long does it take to get the Swiss residency. Very important. Very good for taxes. Something else? You're welcome. Okay. Good. I don't know how we finish this. Thank you so much. One more question or not? No. Thank you so much, everyone. Are you all want to go? Okay.